Good morning. Welcome to Fast Forward Diversity and Inclusion. I'm Isa Buencamino, and my co-host is Hannah Wilson. And we will be hosting today's webcast, the eighth in our pilot series of 12 interviews. Fast Forward Diversity and Inclusion is a series of webcasts where we invite leading advocates, those who have been working on this agenda for decades. Hannah and my purpose in hosting these conversations is to fast forward our D&I orientation, allowing all of us to build from what's already been achieved and take the agenda to new heights. We invite a diversity of guests representing the protected characteristics, people from all walks of life, from the UK and other countries, because we believe that stretching our D&I orientation to a more global perspective elevates our ability to empathize and understand the lived experiences of others, to do something personally about it in a meaningful way. Hannah?
So this morning, we are delighted to be joined by Dion Johnson. Dion is the womanologist, a multi-award-winning women's champion with diversity, inclusion, and authentic feminine influence at the heart of her work. She's an international strategic ally, a master coach to women in senior leadership, a former midwife, and her mission is the re-empowerment of humanity in the marketplace leadership. So Dion, we're absolutely grateful and delighted to have you here today. My first question, it's the same question to everyone each week. So how did you become a champion for diversity, equity, inclusion, and why is this work important to you?
Thanks for having me, Gary. I'm so excited about this conversation. I haven't hidden that. I haven't been hiding how excited I am to be joining you on this Sunday morning. This topic is my thing, and I think that I got into it when I got out of the womb. I think I was born a champion. So, fighting and defending and having a cause has been a kind of story of my life. When I was young, I really had a bit of a warrioress with a really strong sense of, what is fighting for what's right. Back then, it was a lot to do with like having arguments with my elders about philosophical things that I could see really strongly. So that was, quite an early start into it. But I got into women's services through work. I was a nurse, and then I went into midwifery really early on in my career. And childbirth, I was an intuitive midwife, a real sort of midwife of the soul. And I realized that women's power, first of all, I recognized how powerful women were in midwifery. And I also recognized just how the system was undermining in terms of women's power, women's voices, quite a lot in midwifery. So I was fighting and championing my clients, my women back then, no, she doesn't want a cesarean section. She wants a home birth. She wants to breastfeed. She wants to bottle feed, like really championing women's childbirth issues and reproductive health was my start into this. And then when later on in my career in midwifery, I noticed that there was a group of women that were really not being served well by our service. And they were schoolgirls in pregnancy. So in the area that I worked, there were really high numbers of 12 to 17-year-olds getting pregnant and having babies. And we didn't understand why, and we didn't really understand how to care for them. But I really wanted to do better. So I started championing for them. So I developed a service. It was pioneering, and when I look back, it's a bit ahead of its time back then, but really pioneering service to deal with these really brilliant but troubled young people, and developing the service, getting the service to meet their needs, which was really the work of my life for over a decade. I'm really proud of that service. It's still happening today. And so that was my entry into being a champion in terms of women, because that's my big area, is championing women.
Wow, that's incredible. You're born a champion. That's such an amazing terminology. I want to ask you, what drives you? I mean, gosh, what drives you?
I am. So as I get older, I find myself much less driven and much more led. But historically, I am about something. I don't do small talk really well. I like the deep things of life. I'm wired for the deeper things of life, and there's just so much. If you're wired that way, if you're wired to see things beneath the surface, then there's just so much that I heard somebody say once that the biggest room on the planet is the room for improvement. And honestly, I see that room everywhere I go. I'm wired to see what needs to get better, what needs to improve. And one of the things that I've come across talking to people like me and working with women is that the women that are really driven to make change, they just have eyes that are in tune with what needs to get better, and we personalize that. We take it seriously when we see something that needs to get better. It's kind of like we can't not see it. Once we see it, it's in us, it's in our DNA, it's in our cells. We want to make things better.
I love your language, Dion. You're getting lots of comments from women listening today. Like, you're speaking our language. And I know we spoke the same language when we had the briefing call. I just wanted to zoom in on two words you've used already. So you talked about being in tune with women, and you talked about intuition. And I'm really intrigued by this kind of intersection between our personal identity and our professional identity, and how you kind of started your work working with mothers in the ward giving birth, but actually your work's now more about them in professional spaces. Can we just unpack that a little bit more about that kind of intersection of the spaces?
Yeah, it's a lot of people say, like, wow, midwifery, women's champion, like leadership development, midwifery leadership development, they're poles apart. But for me, they are, my role in both are kind of the same. It's really about repowering women so that humanity can do a thing in the world, like bring forth new things, new ideas, whether it be a baby or it be a vision or a dream. So for me, the work is really much the same. And the intuitive piece and the in-tuneness of it all is really undergirding the thing behind my belief that we in the marketplace are very IQ focused. We are intelligent people. We can manage information. We're very, we love data. We can understand intelligence. We're intelligent and we love information. And over the last 20 years, I've seen a real shift and in the way that we embrace emotional intelligence. So we want to talk about how people feel now. We care about how people feel. But for me, there's another type of intelligence that's really powerful that I feel I was born to master and teach, and it's spiritual intelligence. And, this thinking, not religious intelligence, I'm talking about spiritual intelligence, where we really ponder the deeper things or the higher things in whatever we're doing, how we relate to each other, how our purpose for being, why we are here, the meaning of things. For me, this is what I mean when I say spiritual intelligence. And I think that what I've been learning on my journey is that we really master IQ. We really are getting familiar with EQ, but the missing link, the missing piece is this SQ, this spiritual intelligence that makes us sturdy. And right now, I think no one can argue with the fact that we're just not sturdy. There's just so much sickness and struggle and stuckness and suffering around us and in our realms. We're not stable, and I think it's because we've got this missing piece, this spiritual intelligent piece. And actually, my deepest conviction is that it's because we don't have women's voices loud enough that we've missed this spiritual piece.
Dion, you have done a lot of work, working with women. Effectively, what I'm hearing from you is that you help them meet their calling everyone is born with a calling, and the calling is something that I think most people try to avoid doing because it's not easy, isn't it? So how do you help the women that you help to actually meet their calling, to find the courage to meet their calling?
So when women come to me, they're usually coming because there's something going on at work. There's conflict, or maybe they have a personal issue that's affecting their leadership, or they have a kind of desire to see something happening, and they feel somehow inadequate or insufficient, or not able to, or not capable to make that change happen. So women come with particular problems, challenges that they're experiencing at work. And almost invariably, no matter what people come with, when we start to tear back the layers of the challenge and the struggle, it's got something to do with being out of alignment with who you are and why you are and what you're here to do. And it's like magic. And like oftentimes, if there's a particular struggle, sometimes I just get so amazed at how quickly it keeps coming back to this central thing of, who the heck am I? Why are you there? And what's your life about? What's your leadership about? So I think I'm yet to find a struggle or a challenge that isn't really rooted in that. And, most leadership training and most leadership development really just skims on the surface of that. And what I've seen is that that's the place where we need to go deeper. That's the place where we need to unpack, because it's therein is the unleashing of our truest power to change things.
Oh, honestly, I'm getting goosebumps, Dion. And I'm just like zooming in on the language again. So, do you mean we talk in the language, a deficit language of disadvantage, disempowerment, disenfranchisement, and you talk in the affirmative language of re-empowerment. Like, I love the way you reframe it, and you talk about what's possible rather than what's impossible. I just wondered whether you could share some of your journey with us. Like, what are some of the barriers and the obstacles that you faced on your journey as a woman doing this really important work? And what's some of the wisdom you can share about how you overcame some of those struggles?
Well, I love this question because I always I've got this stock answer that I take off the shelf every time I'm asked it. I am Black in a very white world, white-led world. I'm a Black woman in a white man's world. I am facially disfigured in a beauty-obsessed world. And I'm a hot, strong Christian in a religion-phobic and secular world. And so I just, like, all of those things that are central to who I am, have most of my life, for a lot of my early life, coming into, leaving school, leaving university and going out into the world. Most of those things about me, all of those things about me, I thought of as Black marks against me, pardon the pun, like just things that would just mean that I couldn't be a woman of influence. I couldn't bring my warrioress nature and make any difference. I couldn't be taken seriously by the real change makers, by the real leaders of the governors of our world, who I thought of as white people. But that's just how I grew up. And so but then there was this sort of other side of inside me, just without any permission from me, this energy of greatness would be bubbling up. This capacity to see things that needed to be changed in the world, and this knowledge that I needed to be part of changing it. So there was like an oxymoron that I see so many, not just Black women, but many women, and not even just women, but many people have this kind of oxymoron where there is like an inner knowing that I'm called, I'm chosen, I'm great. And then there's all of this messaging in the air that we breathe that say, oh, because you look like that, you're not in the in crowd, or because you sound like that, or your name sounds like that, or you worship that God, or you this or that, you're not in the in crowd. Like there's this big battle, and that's been my fight my whole life, whether I've realized it or not. And it's all sort of come to the surface. It's all coming together in an understanding that my whole life I've been fighting and learning how to fight more elegantly to quench this challenge that's going on the inside. And so what I've been learning is what I teach and talk about and share with my clients,
Thank you, Dion. And although you said that was an answer off the shelf, it doesn't sound like one. Like, you talk with such authenticity and integrity. You know yourself so well. And you're getting lots of lovely comments about how can we spend some time with this woman? We need some of her energy. And they're going to be gutted when they find out you did come to Women Ed 4 years ago. That's how I met you. You came down to Bristol. You did this amazing workshop about masks and about authenticity and about how we show up in the world. Could you just perhaps summarize that session and give some pointers about how you identify those masks, but how you actually remove those masks, about how you show up in the world?
So in 2009 was my kind of turning point year. So before I was just like existing, doing my thing. And then in 2009, I had this really big turning point year where, just multiple things started to happen that really I struggled with. So I started to feel like, my work, even though I was really passionate about supporting women in the coaching capacity, I just started to really not be able to deny that there was something missing in terms of sustainability of the results that women were getting with me. So my clients would leave me really high and feeling strong, and then go back to their work and their life, and I'd meet them like a year later or so, and they kind of slipped right back into that same old stuff. And after a few conversations of realizing this, it bothered me. Like, if I don't want to just make people feel good and get paid, and then they go off and then things haven't changed, because change is really what I'm about. So I was questioning what would that be? What would need to happen for me to start to create sustainable change? And in my personal life, it was just, everything was crashing down. The life that I was living and creating didn't represent this great person on the inside. And then my aunt died, and through a series of random events, I just found myself on my knees in 2009 with my hands up in the air like this, saying, God, like something's not okay. Something's hurting. And I had this conversation with God, and I felt myself being challenged to think, why won't you show up for real? Like, why are you hiding? When I was 4 years old, I was gifted an artificial eye and dark glasses that I wore all my life. I didn't go anywhere without them. And it was just kind of, I call it the beginning of my life behind the mask. And I just never let anybody see me. And that was such a powerful metaphor for how I was living my life, just not letting anybody really know who I was or really see me. And in 2009, I found myself having this conversation, being really challenged, like, hey, like, what's all this covering up about anyway? I wasn't just hiding my disfigured face. I was just hiding me. And actually, I was hiding me from even myself. I just got so disconnected from the core of who I was, trying to be this for them and trying to be like that for her and him, and just trying to fit in and blend in. And so this is what I started talking about. This is what I was talking about with your group, your phenomenal group. It was a packed room. I was so surprised. It was such a packed room in Women Ed. And what really I remember about that and other conversations that I've had is just how much you don't have to be a Black woman with a disfigured face and an unpopular worldview to have these feelings, to feel like you're hiding, you're not fully showing up, you're playing small, you're holding back, you're not really using your voice, you're robotic about life. You're just going through the motions. And like this is something that I see so often when I talk about it, like just like you're all nodding, because we know it. It's just we don't always know what to do about it, or even whether we should do something about it. Because, you know, life like this behind the mask works to a degree, you know. You can win awards behind the mask. You know, you can get top jobs behind the mask. You can get all the applause and the accolade and never really know who you are, or never really show up. But systems stay the same when we operate like that. And that's what we're seeing with diversity and inclusion, is that when we don't bring out the thing that's going to challenge the systems that we live in, you know, because we are different, when we don't dare to really be honest about what we see needs to change, or what we know needs to happen, or what we think, or what we hunch, or what we intuit, if we're not bringing that, then the system just continues to stay the same. We keep having our awards ceremonies and clapping, and people keep struggling. People stay sick. People stay, suffering. The system stays the same, and it just goes on and on and on. But we can't really afford that anymore. We must take these masks off.
Wow, that really resonates with me, Dion. So I think what you're saying is, you know, part of the work is about really helping women, first of all, find their purpose, find their calling, understand that what makes them great is already in them, and helping them find what's already valuable in them is the first part of the job. But I'm hearing you're saying that the next part of the job is that it's almost that's stage one, but stage two is almost like helping these women fight the system in an elegant way, maybe. Can you say more about how you do that?
Yeah, I love the word elegance. I think that that's what we have to learn, that we are women. I'm a champion of women, and I really believe in our power. I believe that we're innately called, designed to influence, demurely, elegantly. And but when we went into the marketplace, I mean, we used our elegant influence in the home. We've used it for centuries in the home. We influence our partners, we influence our kids elegantly in the home. Even in the community, you know, even in the church, in the community spaces, we know how to do it there. But in the marketplace, what I see has happened is that we're new kids on the block. Dr. Yvonne Thompson says that we're like migrants in the marketplace. We're the new kids. Like just 70, 80 years ago, women were not in marketplace leadership. It was a man's domain. And we have we're new kids. We've showed up in the marketplace, and what we did, like any good migrant, we saw we just, took in how things were done around here. And then we assimilated that, and we began to be like the environment. And we have become more and more disconnected from the thing, that elegant influencer that we are as women innately. And we've started to do things the way that the system operated, and we assimilated to the system. But now the system's not working. And we need to reclaim our womanity. That's a chapter in my book, Reclaiming Our Womanity, that part of us that really knows how to receive intuitive understanding about things that aren't understandable yet. Receive direction, hunches, like a knowing of how to proceed in unfamiliar territory, in uncertainty, in crisis. Like that's what we do really best as women, and it's been lost in our assimilation and our integration into the very masculine structure of the marketplace. I'm really keen for that to happen. I'm really keen for us to get back to that. So I say that first we need to heal. For centuries we have endured. We've been burned at the stake. We've been scandalized. We've been brutalized. We've been owned as chattel. We've come through a lot, and women, we're still here. Black women have the slavery part to deal with too. So, we've been through a lot and we're still here. But we need to, I found in my woman-to-woman work behind the mask, that there's still real strong residues of those wounds and those scars in many different ways. So there's something to do with healing. And then there's something to do with handling our hindrances. And the way that I think about this is that we're wired to stay safe. We're wired to make sure that we don't and our kids don't come to harm. That's what we're wired for. But influence isn't a safe pursuit, Challenging systems isn't safe. And so we have to really get into understanding clearly what those hindrances, what that wiring won't let us do, that we need to start doing, that we have to start handling that. And I think the way that we heal and handle our hindrances is through developing habits, like repowerment habits, like reclamation habits, like restoring habits, habits that help us to reconnect with our innate power. We don't need empowerment. We are powerful. I was a midwife for a long time, and I can tell you, women are not the weaker sex. We are strong and powerful, but it's like that reconnection to that power is the work of now. I think it was Gandhi that said we need to be the change that we want to see in the world. But the way that I see it is that challenging this complex, giant, intimidating, mysterious human system that creates inequality and creates unjust outcomes isn't something that any one of us can be. It's, this is something I say we must learn, evolve, become the influencers of the change that we want to see in the world. Not just be the change, but be the influencers of it, so that we are intentional about becoming more influential. I think that's the key.
Oh, Dion, there's so many things I want to comment on and so many questions I want to ask you, but just really sort of like zooming in on this feminine energy, this feminine influence. I love this visual of a kind of an elegant way of leading as a woman, not us losing ourselves in these man-shaped molds. And I think just making the link to like what's going on in the world right now, and the fact that we've got these emerging powerhouse yet elegant female role models like Jacinda Ardern, and everything that's being published about the countries who have overcome COVID are led by women, and women who aren't pretending to be men, women with feminine energy. And I'm just thinking about like the kind of this new chapter we find ourselves in as COVID hopefully comes to an end. Like, what are your hopes perhaps for the post-COVID world for feminine leadership in particular?
That's such a good question. And I've read all of those articles, and I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the difference that women make if we dare to do the alignment work, if we dare to reconnect and regather ourselves. Because there's no point in us being in the room if we're not going to be ourselves. We don't make the difference that we're there to make. But in this post-COVID world, so a few things happened in the COVID season, is that we really got a chance to hear people talk about how segregation or isolation and quarantine affected their mental health. Like it was a big thing, that people talking about how they realize the need for connection, the need for human interaction. This is, for me, it's exciting because the marginalized feel that all the time. And it's almost like, from my experience has been that it's almost like there's been this denial that there is this huge traumatic impact on marginalized people, disenfranchised people, by people who are privileged to not have to experience it on a daily basis. So my hope for post-COVID is that we just don't forget those news stories of really brilliant leading official people really coming unstuck and undone in this difficult time of quarantine that we've endured, because that is the key to the empathetic forward movement, fast forward movement in our fight against inequality and our fight for repowerment and inclusion and diversity. Like, we really need people to hold on to what they learned in the lockdown, what they learned about the human need in the lockdown, because the marginalized are human. The disenfranchised are human. And now we've had en masse a masterclass on what segregation and unfairness and inequality does to the human heart and spirit. I'm hoping that we take that into our leadership and into our boardrooms. Like, we cannot afford to leave it behind. We cannot afford to forget.
Absolutely, I feel exactly the same way. I want to ask now. I think now is the time that women leaders need to step up, because there's something about the context of COVID, the opportunity COVID has given us to actually step up. I mean, in the news, you would see celebration of the female leaders of the world who are actually dealing with this problem a lot better than their male counterparts. I believe that it's really partly because of the way that we're made. Like, women, we are survivalists. First, biology dictates we're survivalists. So there's something very natural in the way that we already are, that we can lead through what's happening through COVID. Do you agree with this?
I really agree. I think the stage has been set. So in 2013, during a time of prayer, I received this understanding that it was time for women to prepare to ascend to a new dimension of influence. Like, this is something that just arrived, and I just knew, first of all, it was a message for me, and then it was a message for women around the world who lead. And I realized that that there was a preparation season, and I think we still have a preparation season ahead of us, that women are being, I think that the stage has been set, that even the hardest of hearts now realizes that things need to change, that things haven't been working for too many people. They seem to work for some, but they don't work for too many people. They're struggling and crying. I think the world's eyes are on this issue right now in a way like we haven't seen, I don't think, in my lifetime, and perhaps we won't see again. So I really believe that the stage has been set for our kind of leadership, the loving, caring, compassionate, intuitive, whatever the word is, our ability to nurture, our ability to understand things at a deeper level, bringing in spiritual intelligence, our ability and our call to bring spiritual intelligence to a secular, very intelligent, very heady marketplace. I think that's what's available to us right now.
I love this spiritual intelligence, and I'm definitely going to really reflect on that, because I completely agree with you that we have these different dimensions of who we are, and whether it's a faith-based spirituality or a non-faith-based spirituality, that value and belief system we have. Can we just talk about men for a second? I don't want our male audience to feel like this is all about womanhood. I know that's your primary target audience, but if we're going to shift the energy into this feminine leadership kind of model, we obviously need our he for she allies and advocates to be working with us, and not all men lead in that stereotypical patriarchal way. Can you just speak to that? Because we've got some male leaders who are listening, who are massive advocates, and how can they contribute to this change, Dion?
Sorry about that. People always say, people call me a feminist, and whilst I'm not against being called a feminist, but what I am against is this notion that I'm anti-men. Like this, if that what I'm not saying, and what I'm not saying loudly, is that women need to take over and, forget the men. But what this is really about is learning how to coexist with our strengths. And men have some incredible strengths that we really need. And all of us have masculine and feminine energy. All of us have masculine and feminine tendencies. It's like, I see it like a scale. So like on one hand is femininity and the other hand is masculinity. And we all operate somewhere in the scale. Our dominant way of operating is somewhere along the scale. And we all fluctuate along that scale all the time. Like we're always doing it. If we were only feminine or only masculine, it doesn't work. We can't survive that way. So within each of us, there's this scale, but then within organizations, there's a scale as well. And what I say, the way I describe it is that feminine is the stewardship. Like women are the natural stewards of the feminine. Men are the natural stewards of the masculine. And there's some biological differences in the two of them, but we all fluctuate. So this is not an anti-man message. This is an inclusion message. This is a harmony message. This is we really need our men to be standing up in their power. Do you know how many men are dying? Suicide, mental health issues, heart issues. Men are struggling too. The reason that I want to see women rise up is because our men really need us to support them too. Like we need to support each other. It's a coexistence, and we can't do this without our men. We simply can't.
No, absolutely. And part of me, the reason I use the word elegant is because I think that if the women want to step into the space, elegant means that we don't do it through arguing or making anyone lesser. It's about lifting ourselves, but it's like a tide that if we lift it, all boats are lifted, not just ours, everyone else's.
And
realize that it. Sorry.
I mean, let me just say that the thing about the fighting method for women is that we're just not built for it. Our hormonal system, our wiring, our makeup can't handle that stress the whole time. Like this, we approach work with this kind of attack mentality, and it's burning our adrenals. Like there are physical reasons why we cannot keep leading this way, and it's energetically expensive for women to be on the attack, to be fighting, or to not be expressing themselves. So women need to express themselves, and we need to do things elegantly because it's our makeup. Without it, we get sick. So a lot of the people that I'm seeing, fibromyalgia, migraine, MS, insomnia, all the anxiety-related illnesses, heart disease, we're in pain. If you look at what the doctors are prescribing, heart medicines, pain relief, antidepressants. We're sick, we're in pain, we're depressed, we're not happy. No one leads their best. No one has their best impact. No one functions well when we have all of this going on. It's a case of self-care.
Right. I was gonna say that it's got 40 minutes has passed, Hannah, and we have 20 minutes left. I feel like we have to start talking about your book, Dion. Can you tell us more about your book? Why have you decided to write it? What is it about?
I'm going to really be frank with you, okay? When I decided to write a book, it was a business decision. My coach told me, write a book. It'll be like a business card. It will get you into rooms. It will open doors for you. So I thought, how difficult can this be? I know about women. I know about leadership. I know about personal and professional development. Like I'll just bang this out and and just get it done. But the process was not like that for me. It was a real cathartic, some of the things that I'm sharing with you today have become clear out of that process of pulling thoughts together for the book, and really understanding that everything that I've been through, like going back and joining the dots, everything that I've been through personally and professionally was all part of developing my influential voice. And then trying to get to that understanding myself and put it into a book and refer to inequality. Like, I was so surprised that inequality was vying for such a central position in the book. I didn't know that when I started writing, but that came out of my heart. Like, I don't just want to write a book to get me into rooms. I want to challenge women to rise up and become the influencers that can finally begin to shift the needle on unequal producing systems. And so that's what it's turned into, and it's been an amazing journey. I've seen that we need to heal. I've seen that we need to handle our hindrances. And in the book, I present 7 habits that really help us to become, in the book, I say queen influencers. That means that we ascend to our thrones. We take our metaphorical thrones as influencers in the marketplace. That the system is like a big, powerful king. And this king's rulership creates unequal outcomes. People aren't happy under this big system's rule. And who better to influence the king than the queen? And so the book is calling women to rise up and take their throne as queen influencers within their realm. So whether they're leading in education or science and technology or the media or the arts and leisure or business or the government, or wherever women are leading. Oops. Am I still live? Am I still live?
Yes, lovely. You're here. Don't worry. We can hear you.
I got a call come through. So, I forget what I was saying now.
Let me pull you back, Dion. Just mute yourself for 2 seconds so we don't get some playback. So I love this metaphor that you were painting for us. Just mute yourself, Sweetie, because we're getting so. I love this metaphor of it's a kingdom, it's a king-led system, and you want women to rise up and bring their queen energy to the table. That's such a powerful calling. It's beautiful. I just wanted to go back to your exploration of writing as a cathartic process, because you talked about us being unhealthy and unhappy, and this writing as part of your own perhaps therapy to process and explore and understand yourself. We talk a lot about the kind of the inner work we need to do in order to do the outer work, and I'm kind of hearing that you writing this book was actually part of your inner journey to fully show up. You were already here, but like fully show up with that queen energy in the world. Just speak back to me about that, Dion.
Oh, so good. I got goosebumps hearing you feed it back to me. But it's so critical that, when we were talking about elegance earlier on, I think that the elegant piece really comes from, like, if I do this, it's kind of like shutting out the noise there and coming right back to center and listening and harvesting our inner wisdom and allowing ourselves to conceive things that we just can't when we're just so busy and fighting and pushing and stressing. So writing is a very powerful way. All of my clients begin writing when we work. I encourage everyone to get a really great journal and a brand new pen, because and put me on the first page. One of the habits that I talk about in the book is radical authenticity, and it's really about radically becoming habitual about really getting to know who you are, what you think. That process of joining up the dots, I can't tell you how it was breathtaking to see that everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly of my experience in life was really all about shaping me, all an opportunity to grow a little bit more, all an opportunity to see things differently, all an opportunity to be informed for my influential voice to have power. And we miss this. So I have people next week or in September, I'm doing a summit on imposter syndrome, because a lot of the brilliant people that I work with, I mean, really brilliant, they climb high. They get high positions, but actually they have low self-esteem or low opinion of their authority or low understanding of their greatness. And so there's this high position, low self-awareness that really needs to be addressed. And you don't do that pushing and screaming and shouting and, you don't do that charging ahead. You do that by stopping and receiving and listening and pondering and contemplating and talking. Conversations are healing. Writing is healing. I want all of us women, whether we think we need it or not, to begin this introspection, to begin this inquiry about who I am. What does it mean that I'm a woman? What does woman mean? Am I whole? What does wholeness mean to me? And am I whole? What does it mean to pay attention to developing my spiritual nature? What does it mean to be developing my relationship with me? Like, how do I talk to myself? I have clients, brilliant. I mean, I'm telling you that I work with brilliant people. And sometimes what they're saying to themselves is, oh, you silly cow. Oh, you're so this, or Gordon Bennett, there I go again. Like, really, like, if you wouldn't speak to your children that way. But we speak to ourselves this way. And it's all happening unless we decide to open this up. It just happens in the background and affecting our leadership all the time. This connection with our stuff and the way that it affects our leadership, I don't think we pay enough attention to. I think we think we've left it at the door. But it's coming out in your relationship with your boss. It's coming out in how you show up in the boardroom. We need to get things handled.
Absolutely. Know thyself. Raise your self-awareness. Understand what needs to heal. Understand what makes you strong. Self-awareness, it's very easy to understand in principle, but it is hard to actually do. All the noise on popular culture telling you what the next best thing is, that you're actually not good enough. It's absolutely insane that even some of the most successful people in the world have imposter syndrome. So it's not just me, regular Isa have it. Everybody has it. Isn't that nuts?
I think that people don't understand just how important this work that we're talking about is. So we really do celebrate presenteeism. We love people to be present from morning till night on their computers, banging away, creating this, writing that report. We applaud the grind. We applaud the graft. But my message is that an equally, at least equally important agenda for us as evolving leaders is the personal work. Is this is a challenge for senior leaders. It's really hard for some of us to accept that we don't know everything, or that we've still got way to grow. And for women, I get it. Like, we're still handling much of the housework at home. We're still, caring for the kids largely without much support. And where we've got these big roles, like our plates are full. It can feel like we don't have the bandwidth for anything else. But I say there is something else that wants to come through your leadership, and you don't access it unless you create the room. And so we have to prioritize that other work. We have to.
Yeah, so know thyself, Aristotle has been banging about that for hundreds of years. It's still the issue of humanity that we're facing today. So this is going to be maybe a bit cheeky, but could you share with us one of the 7 principles or that you have written in your book? Just sneak peek.
I shared with you one already, radical self-awareness. Like that's the number one. Like radical self-awareness is like the master habit that I talk about in my book. Then there is the repowering of womanity, which won't be a surprise to you based on how we've spoken today. That repowering womanity is an activity and a habit that we must develop. We must begin to ask ourselves what it means to be a woman and learn that. Like there's so much confusion about what it means to be a woman. Some of us, some of us really do believe it's like about the shade of lipstick that we wear, or, the size of our tits, like there's much more about us than our body shape or our bum size or the height of our heels or our hairstyle or our dress sense or even our tone. There's more to us than that, and I think that most women have not thought about what that means. And reclaiming wholeness. So there's a whole chapter in the book about making wholeness a habit, when mind, body, soul, spirit align in harmony. That's Carl Jung's work is about the harmony of all aspects of our being and how important that is. And reconnecting with God, finding out what spirituality means to you, finding out who, are you neglecting your spiritual side is a question that the book really asks. And relevance, creating a clear understanding and articulation and communication about why you're the woman for the job. Like this one is a big one for us as women. We don't like to toot our own horns, but we need to be really aware of the biggest problems in our realm and then become clear and convinced ourselves about why only I can influence this change. Like there's these things about me, like my face, my color, my faith, my the things I've shared with you about me, they make me unique in tackling womanity in the marketplace. Like no one can do it like me, and we all need to identify what makes us most relevant in our marketplace, and it's got to do with our story, it's got to do with our life experiences, our wisdom. We really have to find that for ourselves and then begin to communicate it. And another big one is respect. Like I tell you, you don't get to influence what you don't respect. And that's what I think a lot of women I see are trying to make the system change, but they don't respect the system. They don't respect the people they work with. They don't respect the history of the system. They hate, they're resentful, they're bitter. And, this needs to be handled. And then finally in the book, the seventh habit is about reframing. And we go into find strategies for finding new ways to look at things so that you don't have to talk yourself out of growth and evolution.
Dion, thank you so much for sharing those snippets. I think you've got a lot of people that are going to go and try and find your book and buy your book. And I've just shared your newsletter link as well. Can we talk about success? What does success look like for you in your work, and what does success look and feel like for the women you're working with? Like how do you measure the impact of being this woman of influence?
I see success as the journey more than a destination. So, I feel like peace is a really good barometer of success. Peace in forward movement. So peace and progress in harmony, I feel, is a really powerful success indicator. So what I mean by that is if you're making a difference, if you are speaking up, if you're showing up and with using your voice, and you can look at yourself and you're not sabotaging your ethics or your self-esteem, you're making a difference and you're doing it without distress. For me, that is where I want to get my clients to. Because oftentimes when women are making progress, they're doing it at the expense of their health or their energy or their enthusiasm or their self-esteem or their ethics. Like something's got to give, they're at all costs, they're going after making the difference. and then they're fighting for the change and they're dying on the inside. And like, for me, you have to be able to maintain your health and your peace and progress at the same time. For me, that's what success looks like.
Fantastic. Unbelievably, Dion, time's up. I can't believe it's gone so fast. So one final question is, so what's the final message you want to leave our audience?
Sorry about that. Inequality doesn't have to be with us. It really doesn't. And what I want people to think about is that the whole point of diversity and inclusion is transformation. It's transformation. It's making things better. The whole point of having different people take a look at the same problem, the same challenge, is that we come up with better ideas about how to make things better. So it's not there's so much that needs to be made better that we just simply don't have an option. Inclusion is the way to make things better. And so I say the way to get convinced of that is to start to care about the problems in your realm, in your domain, in your vicinity. If you start to get intolerant to the problems that are around you, affecting the people that you work with and that you serve, and you get to the place where you realize our system isn't working, then diversity and inclusion will be easy because you'll realize that, like, that will be your goal. Your goal will be looking for new ideas about how to do this work. So I feel it's all about the mission. I feel like if we can get really clear on, if we can become mission-centric people, like start to abandon indifference and get really engaged in what's not working, then I think we naturally start to look for ways that we can do things better. And that will involve other people and other people's views.
Hannah, how about you? What's your final take?
There's so much I'm going to take away from our chat today, Dion. I think I've got some really powerful metaphors in my mind now from the pictures you've painted for us today. The first one is just that living behind a mask. And I think for everyone who's listened today to really go away and do that reflection, that journaling about, like, what mask am I wearing? How can I remove these masks? How can I show up and be radically authentic? I think that's such a powerful message. And then when you do that, like, where's this crown? Where's the queen energy that you're going to bring? What's your calling? What's your unique calling and contribution to the world? But what you just said there at the end really resonated as well. We are quite obsessed with vision. And I think there's a lot of people who would say that their vision is to have an equal world. But what you've just defined there is actually, it's the mission about how we go about it that we need to change. The mission needs to be done in an elegant, feminine way, that we can all have the same vision of social equity and inclusion and diversity, but it's how we go about it to get the transformation. And you've just really sown a seed with me there. So thank you so much for your wisdom today. Isa, what about you, darling? What are you going to take away from our chat with Dion?
Okay, two things. I think of everything you said, Dion, and there's a lot. My favorite one is about your fourth R. Out of your 7 R's, your fourth R is about, I think it's the fifth. Anyway, it's respect. Respecting the what we're fighting against. That it's something that we cannot solve in an instant. It requires educating yourself a bit more, making yourself a little bit more resilient. In previous sessions, we keep saying, the path of inclusion it's not a commute, it's a really long journey, and you have to build your stamina for it, and we need to respect what we are trying to change. And like Hannah, what you just said at the end, the whole point of diversity and inclusion is about transformation. I love that. It's about making things better. And that speaks to me and Hannah a lot, because this is why we do Fast Forward Diversity Inclusion. We really are wanting to help everyone who's interested in the topic to learn a little bit more about it so that they can lift the agenda up. So yeah, I feel so powerful just talking to you, Dion. I feel like my power has elevated 2 points up. Thank you so much. Hannah?
Yeah, Dion, thank you so much. Honestly, you've got some amazing comments from the people who have listened today. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Next week's show, we are going to be talking to Sean Delente. Sean is an ex-primary school leader. He's an award-winning author of Celebrating Difference, a whole school approach to LGBT plus inclusion in schools. And we're going to be talking about the work he's done around LGBT plus awareness in the national organisations, but primarily in education. So thank you so much for everyone joining us today. Dion, thank you so much for being an amazing guest, and I'm sure you're going to have lots of new followers on all your social media accounts and lots of pre-orders for your fabulous book. So happy Sunday, everyone. Take care. Thank you.